Assalamualaikum and good day to all of you, especially to our professor, Professor Jomar Ibrahim. We are the Group 7, and me and my partner, Monessa Mangulamas, will going to discuss the El Filibusterismo. Now, let's have to know the content first. So this focuses on Jose Rizal's challenges and determination in publishing El Filibusterismo. It outlines how Rizal moved to Ghent, Belgium for cheaper printing, endured poverty, and found personal belongings to fund the project. After funds ran out, printing was suspended until Valentin Ventura sent help, allowing the book's publication on September 18, 1891. Rizal showed gratitude by distributing copies to supporters and reformists. The book was praised abroad, but many copies were confiscated, making surviving ones rare and valuable. Okay, now let's proceed to finding a printer. So, di ba pumunta si Rizal sa Belgium para lang i-publish ang El Filibusterismo. So now, first bullet is Rizal moved to Ghent, Belgium in 1891. So, Ghent offered cheaper printing option compared to other European cities. So with that, Rizal was financially struggling after his stay in Brussels. Ghent, a university city in Belgium. So it has several small printing presses that charge significantly less than those in Paris or Brussels. So this made it a practical option. Next bullet is found F. Mayer Van Loo Press offering low printing costs. So he chose this press because it allows small partial payments, fitting his tight budget. With that, this press agreed to Rizal's unusual request. So, printing in small batches and accepting partial payment, this flexibility was essential since Rizal lacked funds and pride. Next is found his jewels to pay the initial fees. So Rizal desperate to publish his work. Rizal sacrifices valuables to begin printing. So Rizal owned a few personal valuables, including jewelry, likely gifted or inherited. Pawning them show his deep commitment to getting El Filibusterismo published, even at personal loss. Next is financial struggles. So Rizal lived very modestly to save money. So he endured poverty to focus resources on the book's publication. With that, financial struggles, Rizal lived in cramped condition, avoided luxuries, and ate frugally. So, he didn't pursue leisure or comfort. His priority was the publication. Next is, ate at the cheapest restaurant and rented a small room, and received some funds from Basa and Rodriguez areas, but still not enough. So Rizal friends like Jose Maria Basa, a fellow reformist based in Hong Kong, and Rodriguez areas sent money, but it was not enough. The printing of novel, especially one as politically sensitive as El Fili, came with high cost and risk. So, grabe talaga yung struggle ni Rizal sa pagpapublish ng El Filibusterismo. Next is printing suspended. So, in August, the first bullet is in August 6, 1891, printing had to stop due to lack of funds. Next bullet is Rizal considered burning the manuscript out of despair. Next is wrote desperate letters asking for help. So with that, meaning to say, printing suspended, Printing was expensive even with partial payment. By August 6, 1891, Rizal ran out of money, forcing the press to pause. So the idea of burning the manuscript shows his despair. So he feared that his efforts would amount to nothing if the book wasn't published. So Rizal's letters to friends were emotional and urgent. He was aware time was running out, both financially and politically, as Spanish censorship would soon prevent publication altogether. Next is a lifeline from a friend. First bullet is Valentin Ventura, a friend in Paris, sent the needed money. Next is Rizal resumed and completed printing. Next is September 18, 1891, El Filibusterismo was officially published. So with that, a lifetime from a friend, Valentin Ventura's rule, a wealthy friend and Filipino reformist based in Paris. So Ventura learned of Rizal's struggles and sent the money needed to resume and complete the printing. His support was timely and generous. Completion of El Filibusterismo, the book was finally printed and released on September 18, 1891, marking a major achievement in Rizal's life. Impact of Ventura's help is, without Ventura, El Fili might have never reached the public. So Rizal publicly acknowledged his gratitude to Ventura. Next is gratitude and distribution. First bullet is send copies to Basa, Sixto Lopez, and other close friends. Next is gave Ventura the original manuscript and a signed copy. Next is complementary copies were sent to key reformists like Blumentritt, Luna Brothers, and Pardo de Tavera. Meaning to say, with that, gratitude and distribution, early copies, Rizal ensured his closest supporters to receive copies. Basa and Lopez were essential in distribution and advocacy. Manuscript to Ventura was Rizal gifted the original handwriting manuscript and a signed copy to Ventura. Kasi nga, kung hindi dahil kay Ventura is wala ang El Fili. So, a symbol of deep personal and political gratitude. Distribution to reformists, he sent free copies to other leaders like Ferdinand Blumentritt, his European confidante. Juan and Antonio Luna and Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, influential Filipinos in the reform movement. Next is public reception. First is highly praised by Filipino expatriates and European critics. Next is La Publicidad, Barcelona, compared it to Alexander Dumas' works. With that, public reception, positive reception abroad. Though censored in the Philippines, El Fili was celebrated by intellectuals and critics in Europe, especially by fellow expatriates. Comparison to Dumas, La Publicidad comparing Rizal's work to Alexandre Dumas elevated Rizal's status as a literary figure. Serialization in Spain, publishing the novels in parts through El Nuevo Regimen made it more accessible and spread its message to liberate Spanish leaders. Now let's proceed to rare and valuable. First is most copies shipped to Hong Kong were confiscated. Few remaining Gent copies became rare collector's items sold up to 400 pesetas each. Meaning to say, rare and valuable confiscation in Hong Kong, copies shipped to Hong Kong. a major distribution hub for Filipinos, were intercepted by Spanish authorities. So this prevented wider circulation, a rarity and price due to the confiscation. So few original copies remain. Those that did survive became collector's items. So by the early 90s, they were being sold at high prices up to 400 pesetas, a significant amount then. So in this printing of El Filibusterismo, despite poverty, despair, and political risk, Rizal succeeded in publishing a powerful sequel to Noli Me Tangere. His friends' support, especially Venturas, was instrumental, a testament to how communal effort can fuel revolutionary work. So the novel became a weapon against colonial oppression. Its themes of justice, corruption, and revolution resonated with Filipinos and inspired later revolutionaries. Now let's proceed to El Filibusterismo titled. So the title El Filibusterismo, in English translation, the subversive or the filibustering. During Rizal's time, the word filibustero was used by the Spanish to label anyone who opposed the government or challenged their authority. Rizal chose this title to reflect the shift in tone and purpose from his first novel, Noli Me Tangere. While Noli focused on peaceful reform by exposing the social and moral cancer of the Philippines, El Filibusterismo is much darker and more radical. It shows what happens when change through reform seems impossible. In the novel, the main character, Simon, is actually Crisostomo Ibarra in Distinguished. After suffering betrayal and injustice, he returned not as a reformer, but as a revolutionary. Simon becomes the symbol of the filibustero, someone driven by pain and anger, willing to fight the system with force. Through this title, Rizal sent a strong message. He warns that in the Spanish government continues to ignore the calls for justice, the oppressed people might rise up violently. So while Rizal himself didn't promote armed rebellion, the title shows the danger of pushing people too far. Okay, now let's proceed to Rizal dedication to Gomburza. So this will focus on how Jose Rizal honored the three martyr prize, Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora, in short, Gomburza. In this novel, El Filibusterismo mentioned that this dedication was a powerful act of patriotism and protest. So we have here a background on Gomburza. So who is Gomburza? Gomburza is a Filipino priest falsely accused of leading the Cavite Mutiny in 1872. They were executed by the Spanish colonial government in Bagumbayan, now Luneta na. So their deaths awakened Filipino nationalism and inspired future revolutionaries. Next is Rizal inspiration. So Rizal, yung inspiration niya is si Pasiano. So Pasiano personally knew Father Burgos and told young Rizal about the injustice they face. This early exposure to colonial cruelty helped shape Rizal's desire to fight for reform and justice using peaceful means, especially through his writings. Next is the dedication in El Filibusterismo. So Rizal opens El Filibusterismo with a dedication to Gomburza. He portrays them as victims of oppression and injustice, and expression his hope that their memory will be honored and their names cleared. This dedication reflects Rizal's commitment to truth and justice. Let's proceed to the key excerpt from the dedication. Present and interpret the quote. Rizal quote, "Everyone who without clear proofs attack your memory stains his hands in your blood." Meaning to say that Rizal is warning against accusing the three priests without solid evidence. He strongly defends their honor and condemns the injustice of their execution. Next is historical inaccuracies in the dedication. They point out that while Rizal's message was noble, some factual errors were present. First is the execution dates was February 17, not 28. The priest's age were slightly up. Gomez was 78, not 85. Note, these errors don't weaken the tribute. Rizal's goal was to highlight injustice, not to write a precise biography. With that, Rizal discuss how Rizal dedication helped immortalize Gomburza as national heroes. It strengthened Filipino resistance to Spanish rule and show how literature and powerfully influence society and awaken national consciousness. So I think that's all in my part.
Isang misteryosong lalaki ang dumating. Mayaman, may koneksyon, at isang lihim na layunin. Pero sino siya at anong pagbabago ang dala niya? Ako si Monesa Maton Mangulamas at halina't tuklasin ang isang kwentong puno ng tensyon, misteryo at tanong na dapat mong masagot. Handa ka na ba?
Synopsis of El Filibusterismo. This novel is a bitter cry of a suffering soul. It has a little humor, less idealism, and less romance as what we find in Noli Me Tangere. It is more revolutionary, more tragic than the first novel. So of course, alam naman natin na ang El Filibusterismo ay karugtong ng first novel ni Rizal, which is the Noli Me Tangere. Pero this time, mas dark na yung theme. Kung sa Noli may konting love story, humor at pag-asa, dito sa El Fili halos wala na nun. Mas seryoso, mas intense at mas malungkot na ito. The hero of El Filibusterismo is a rich jeweler named Simon. He was Crisostomo Ibarra of the Noli, who, with Elias' help, escaped from the pursuing soldiers at Laguna de Bay, dug up his buried treasure, and fled to Cuba, where he became a rich and befriended many Spanish officials. Ang main character sa El Filibusterismo ay si Simon, isang mayamang alihero, meaning someone who make or sell jewelries. Pero ang totoo, siya pala si Crisostomo Ibarra and nagbalik siya as Simon after 13 years. Sa ending ng Noli, tinulungan siya ni Elias na makatakas mula sa sundalong humahabol sa kanya sa may Laguna de Bay. Pagkatapos niyang makatakas, hinukay niya yung mga kaymanang tinago niya noon. Tapos sumakay siya papuntang Cuba. Doon, naging super yaman niya at nakipagkaibigan sa mga powerful na Spanish officials. After many years, he returned to the Philippines where he freely moved around. He is a powerful figure not only because he is a rich jeweler but also because he is a good friend and advisor of the Governor General. Pagkatapos na maraming taon, bumalik si Simon sa Pilipinas. This time, maraya na siyang nakakagalaw kahit saan. Wala na yung takot na huhuliin siya kasi hindi na siya kilala bilang Ibarra. Kilala na siya ngayon bilang isang mayamang alihero. Pero hindi lang pera ang dahilan kung bakit siya powerful. Close friend din siya ng Gobernador General, yung pinakamataas na opisyal ng mga Kastila sa bansa. Dahil dito, maraming tao ang may respeto sa kanya. Advisor din siya ng Gobernador, kaya akala ng lahat kakampi siya ng mga Kastila. Outwardly, Simon is a friend of Spain. However, deep in his heart, he is bitter and ruthless, secretly cherishing a terrible revenge against the Spanish authorities. His two magnificent obsessions are to rescue Maria Clara from the nunnery of Santa Clara and to foment a revolution against the hated Spanish masters. Sa panlabas na anyo, si Simon ay parang kaibigan ng mga Kastila. Akala ng lahat, loyal siya sa Spain at sa gobyerno. Pero deep inside, punong-puno siya ng galit at paghihiganti. Tahimik lang siya pero sa puso niya, gusto niyang gumanti sa mga Kastilang umapi sa kanya at sa bayan. So meron siyang dalawang malaking goal sa buhay. Ang una ay iligtas si Maria Clara mula sa kumbento ng Santa Clara kung saan siya nakakulong bilang madre. Pangalawa, pasimulan ang isang revolusyon laban sa mga Kastila para wakasan na ang katiwalian at pang-aabuso. Kaya lahat ng kilos ni Simon, kahit mukhang mabait o inosente, ay part ng kanyang plano. Hindi na siya tulad ni Ibarra na umaasang magbabago ang sistema sa mabuting paraan. Si Simon ay handa nang gumamit ng dahas at panilin lang para makamit ang kanyang layunin. The story of El Filibusterismo begins on board the clumsy, rounded-shaped steamer, Tabo so appropriately named. This steamer is sailing upstream the Pasig from Manila to Laguna de Bay. Among the passengers are Simon, the rich jeweler, Doña Victorina, the ridiculously pro-Spanish native woman who is going to Laguna in search of her henpecked husband, Tiburcio de Espadaña, who has deserted her, Paulita Gomez, her beautiful niece, Ben Jaib, a Spanish journalist who writes silly articles about the Filipinos, Padre Sevilla, Vice Rector to the University of Santo Tomas, Padre Camora, the parish priest of town of Tiani, Don Custodio, a pro-Spanish Filipino holding a high position in the government, Padre Salvi, the thin Franciscan friar and former cura of San Diego, Padre Irene, a kind friar who was a friend of the Filipino students, Padre Florentino, a retired scholarly and patriotic Filipino priest, Isagani, a poet nephew of Padre Florentino and a lover of Paulita, and Basilio, son of Sisa and a promising medical student whose medical education is financed by his patron, Kapitan Tiago. Ang kwento ng El Filibusterismo ay nagsimula sa isang biyahe sakay ng isang mabagal at round-shaped na barko na tinatawag na Tabo. Paakyat ito ng Pasig River mula sa Maynila papuntang Laguna de Bay. Sakay ng barkong ito ang iba't ibang klase ng tao mula sa lipunan. Naroon si Simon, ang mayamang alihero na may lihim na layunin. Kasama rin si Doña Victorina, isang Pilipinang masyadong pro-Spanish, na pupunta sa Laguna para hanapin ang asawa niyang si Tiburcio na tumakas sa kanya. Kasama niya ang pamangkin niyang si Paulita Gomez, isang maganda at sosyal na dalaga. Nandun din si Ben Jaib, isang Spanish journalist na mahilig magsulat ng walang kwentang articles tungkol sa mga Pilipino. Kasama rin sa biyahe ang mga pari, si Padre Sevilla, Vice Rector or Second in Command ng UST, si Padre Camora, pari sa bayan ng Tiani, si Padre Salvi, dating kura ng San Diego, si Padre Irene, mabait at kaibigan ng mga estudyante, at si Padre Florentino, isang retiradong matalino at makabayaning pari. Nandon din si Don Custodio, isang Pilipinong makakastila na may mataas na posisyon sa gobyerno. Si Isagani, isang makatang estudyante at kasintahan ni Paulita Gomez. At si Basilio, anak ni Sisa at isang mahusay na medical student na sinusuportahan ni Kapitan Tiago. Simon, a man of wealth and mystery, is a very close friend and confidante of the Spanish Governor General. Because of his great influence in Malacanang, he was called the Brown Cardinal or the Black Eminence. By using his wealth and his political influence, He encourages corruption in the government, promotes the oppression of the masses, and has stand the moral degradation of the country so that the people may become desperate and fight. Si Simon, isang mayaman at misteryosong tao, ay malapit na kaibigan at konfidante ng Governor General ng mga Kastila. Dahil sa kanyang malaking impluwensya sa Malacanang, tinawag siya ng mga tao na Brown Cardinal o Black Eminence. Gamit ang kanyang yaman at koneksyon sa politika, pinapalakas ni Simon ang katiwalian sa gobyerno, pinapalala ang pang-api sa mga mahirap at pinapalubog ang moralidad ng bansa. Lahat ng ito ay para maging desperado ang mga tao at magsimula ng laban. He smuggles arms into the country with the help of a rich Chinese merchant Quiroga, who wants a very much to be Chinese consul of Manila. His first attempt to begin the armed uprising did not materialize because of the last hour he heard the sad news that Maria Clara died in the nunnery. In his agonizing moment of bereavement, he did not give the signals of the outbreak of hostilities. Sinusuportahan niya ang smuggling ng armas sa bansa gamit ang tulong ni Quiroga, isang mayamang negosyanteng enchik na gustong maging konsul ng China sa Manila. Nagsimula si Simon na magplano ng revolusyon at magpasimula ng armadong pag-aalsa, pero hindi ito natuloy. Sa huling sandali, nalaman ni Simon ang malungkot na balita na pumanaw si Maria Clara sa kumbento. Dahil sa matinding kalungkutan at pighati na nararamdaman niya, hindi na niya tuloy ang plano niyang magsimula ng laban. After a long time of illness brought about by the bitter loss of Maria Clara, Simon perfects his plan to overthrow the government. On the occasion of the wedding of Paulita Gomez and Juanito Pelaez, he gives as wedding gift to them a beautiful lamp. Only he and his confidential associate Basilio know that when the wick of this lamp burns lower than nitroglycerin hidden in its secret compartment will explode, destroying the house where the wedding feast is going to be held and killing all the guests, including the Governor General, the priest, and the government officials. After a long time of illness of Simon dahil sa sobrang kalungkutan sa pagkawala ni Maria Clara, siya ay tuluyan ng nagplano para pabagsakin ang gobyerno at maghihinti sa mga Kastila. Ang plano ni Simon ay isang matinding move para magsimula ng revolusyon. Noong kasal ni Paulita Gomez at Juanito Pelaez, binigyan ni Simon ang magkasintahan ng isang magandang lampara bilang wedding gift. Ang lampara na ito ay may lihim. May nakatago itong nitroglycerin sa loob. Nitroglycerin is an explosive substance and it's hidden inside the lamp's secret compartment. Tanging si Simon at ang kanyang kasamahan na si Basilio ang nakakaalam kung paano ito gagana. Kapag ang apoy ng lampara ay umabot sa wick or yung nasisilihan sa candle, mag-e-explode yun at magdudulot ng malaking pagsabog sa wedding feast. Ang pagsabog ay papatay sa mga bisita ng kasal, kabilang ang gobernador general, mga pari at mga opisyal ng gobyerno, which is sila yung mga taong responsable sa mga paghihirap ng mga Pilipino. As the wedding feast begins, the poet Isagani, who has been rejected by Paulita because of his liberal ideas, is standing outside the house, watching sorrowfully the merriment inside. Basilio, his friend, warns him to go away because the lamp will soon explode. Habang nagsisimula na yung wedding party, si Isagani, isang poet na iniwan ni Paulita kasi hindi siya agree sa mga paniniwala niyan, ay nakatayo lang sa labas ng bahay. Malungkot habang pinapanood yung kasiyahan sa loob. Lumapit yung friend niya na si Basilio at sinabihan siya na umalis na kasi yung lampara na may apoy sa loob malapit ng sumabog. On hearing the horrible secret of the lamp, Isagani thinks of the danger to his beloved Paulita. He rushes into the house, seizes the lighted lamp and hurls it into the river where it explodes. Nung narinig ni Isagani yung delikadong sikreto tungkol sa lampara, naisip niya agad si Paulita. Kahit na hindi na sila, mahal pa rin niya ito. Bigla siyang tumakbo papasok sa bahay. Sinunggaban niya yung lampara na may sindi tapos tinapon niya sa ilog at doon yun sumabog. The revolutionary plot was thus discovered. Simon was cornered by the soldiers but he escaped. Mortally wounded and carrying his treasure chest, he sought refuge in the home of Padre Florentino by the sea. Dahil sa ginawa ni Isagani na reveal yung plano ng revolusyon. Na-corner si Simon ng mga sundalo pero nakatakas pa rin siya. Sugatan siya ng malala at daladala niya yung chest na puno ng kayamanan. Tumakas siya at nagtago sa bahay ni Padre Florentino na nasa tabi ng dagat. The Spanish authorities, however, learned of his presence in the house of Padre Florentino. Lieutenant Perez of the Guardia Civil informs the priest by letter that he would come at 8 o'clock that night to arrest Simon. Kahit nagkatakas si Simon ang nagtrago sa bahay ni Padre Florentino, hindi rin siya nakaligtas sa mga Spanish authorities. Na-trace pa rin nila kung nasaan siya. Si Lieutenant Perez, isa sa mga opisyal ng Guardia Civil, nag-send ng letter kay Padre Florentino para ipaalam na darating siya ng 8 p.m. para hulihin si Simon. Simon eluded arrest by taking poison. As he is dying, he confesses to Padre Florentino, revealing his true identity. His dastard planned to use his wealth to avenge himself, and his callous aim to destroy his friends and enemies for personal ambition. Para hindi siya mahuli ng mga sundalo, iminom si Simon ng lason. Habang unti-unti na siyang namamatay, kinausap niya si Padre Florentino at inamin ng lahat na siya pala si Crisostomo Ibarra, yung dating idealistic na lalaki sa unang libro na bumalik bilang Simon para mahiganti. Sinabi rin niya na ang plano niya talaga ay gamitin yung yaman niya para pabagsakin ang mga kalaban niya at pati na rin ang mga dati niyang kaibigan kung magiging hadlang sila sa personal niyang ambisyon. In short, hindi na siya nagrebelde dahil sa bayan, kundi dahil sa sarili niyang galit at paghihiganti. The confession of the dying Simon is long and painful. It is already night when Padre Florentino, wiping the sweat from his wrinkled brow, arises and begins to meditate. He consoles the dying man, saying, "God will forgive you, Senor Simon. He knows that we are fallible. He has seen that you have suffered, and in ordaining that the chastisement for your fault should come as death from the very ones you have instigated to crime, we can see His infinite mercy. He has frustrated your plans one by one, the best conceived. First, by the death of Maria Clara, then by a lack of preparation, then in some mysterious way, let us bow to His will and render Him thanks." Ang confession ni Simon habang siya'y namamatay ay mahaba at masakit. Puno ng pagsisisi at mga lihim na naitago niya sa matagal na panahon. Nang matapos mag-confess si Simon, gabi na at si Padre Florentino, habang pinapahid ang pawis sa noo niya, tumayo at nagsimulang mag-isip. Pagkatapos, tinulungan niyang magpatawad si Simon at sinabi sa kanya, napapatawarin siya ng Diyos dahil alam ng Diyos na hindi perfect ang mga tao. Kahit na nagkasala si Simon at nabigo lahat ng mga plano niya, kasama na yung pagkamatay ni Maria Clara, nakikita ito bilang awa ng Diyos. Hinihikayat ni Padre Florentino si Simon na tanggapin na lang ang kanyang kapalaran at magpasalamat sa Diyos. Dahil lahat ng nangyari ay bahagi ng kalooban ng Diyos. It emphasized to accept the plan of God, pagpapakumbaba at paghahanap ng kapayapaan sa pagpapatawad at pananampalataya. Watching Simon die peacefully with a clear conscience and at peace with God, Padre Florentino murmurs, "Where are the youth who will consecrate their golden hours, their illusions, and their enthusiasm to the welfare of their native land? Where are the youth who will generously pour out their blood to wash away so much shame, so much crime, so much abomination? Pure and spotless must be the victim, be the sacrifice may be acceptable. Where are you, youth, who will embody in yourselves the vigor of life that has left our veins, the purity of ideas that has been contaminated in our brains, the fire of enthusiasm that has been quenched in our hearts? We await you, O youth, come, for we await you." Habang pinapanood ni Padre Florentino si Simon na unti-unting namamatay ng payapa at may malinis na konsensya at tila nakakamtan na ang kapayapaan sa Diyos, bumulong siya. Ito ay isang malakas na hiling ni Padre Florentino sa kabataan na magsikap at magsakripisyo para sa bayan. Sabi niya, dismayado na yung mga nakakatanda sa nangyari sa bansa, kaya umaasa sila sa kabataan na magdala ng pagbabago. Sabi niya, kailangang maging malinis at puno ng sigla ang kabataan at handang magsakripisyo kahit na mahirap. Sa kabataan nakasalalay ang pag-asa ng bayan kasi sila yung may lakas para baguhin ang mga maling nangyayari at tapusin yung kasamaan sa lipunan. Padre Florentino falls upon his knees and prays for the dead jeweler. He takes the chest of treasures and throws it into the sea. As the waves close over the sinking chest, he invokes, "May nature guard you in her deep abysses among the pearls and corals of her eternal seas. When for some holy and sublime purpose man may need you, God will in his wisdom draw you from the bosom of the waves. Meanwhile, there you will not work woe, you will not distort justice, you will not foment avarice." Habang siya ay nakaluhod at nananalangin para kay Simon, kinuha niya ang chest ng yaman ni Simon at itinapon ito sa dagat. Habang lumulubog ang chest sa mga alon, nagdadasal siya na ang yaman ay manatili sa dagat, malalim at hindi maaabot ng mga tao. Gusto niyang manatili yun doon, malayo sa mundo para hindi na magdulot ng kahit anong harm o kasakiman. Nais niya na kung kailangan pa ang yaman para sa mabuting layunin, ang Diyos na mismo ang magbabalik nito. Hindi para sa selfish na dahilan, kundi para sa mga mataas na layunin. Parang dasal din ito na mawala na yung mga negative na epekto ng yaman at hindi na maging dahilan ng kasamaan at kasakiman.